Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the We're Not Stumped podcast. I'm your host, Mike Bolland, and today we have Maigen Thomas on, and I'm really excited about this. She is the founder of Level 11 Technology, and this is an apprenticeship agency that trains and pays early career designers to build accessible websites. With over a decade of UX design and mentoring, Maigen helps small organizations reach more customers and avoid costly accessibility lawsuits. And of course, UX stands for user experience. She's on a mission to make the web work better for everyone. Maigen, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the We're Not Stumped podcast.
I so appreciate being here. This is honestly my passion to talk about. So being able to reach more people and help them advocate for what they need is even a dream come true. So thank you for having me.
Well, this is going to be interesting because we're going to look at my website. But before we do that, we're not stumped.com, by the way. But before we do that, I would like to hear more about you. We always start the podcast with a segment I call In Your Own Words. So I'd like the listeners to learn more about you.
I really loved how you set me up before we started the recording about like, you can start anywhere you want. So I want to be like, it was a rainy Monday, 12 years after we landed on the moon, that I was born. That was just a delight to bring up. Okay. I love what I do. And someone asked me the other day why I got so excited about accessibility. And I realized that for me, it is more logical. One of my disabilities is being on the autism spectrum and having ADHD, which some people might see as a detriment, just like anybody without context might think that having a disability is a detriment. And without trying to pander, it does sometimes feel like a superpower because it means that I can really lock in on something that a lot of people just assume someone else is going to take care of. But what really brings it to the forefront for me is growing up around people with disabilities. My granddad, for the largest part of my life, I grew up with my grandparents. My parents were divorced, so I was sent to live literally on the farm with my grandparents. And my granddad started losing his vision really early, had a surgery that went slightly awry. And so between some macular degeneration and another something I can't remember or pronounce. It was like in the late 90s that I believe we found this out. Basically, he lost most of his ability to see, and compounding health factors also caused him to, I don't know if the proper terminology, he would refer to it as he lost his leg, but that makes it sound like he went to war. He did not. He had blood clots from smoking and drinking a lot in his life and ended up having a couple of surgeries. So he spent the last third of his life in a wheelchair and being unable to see very effectively, which really limited his mobility, limited his ability to go out and experience life the way I perceived as being the awesome way to experience life. But I learned a lot through that perspective of he didn't stop working. He didn't just sit there and watch Maury all day. He was on the phone. He was still using, get this, microfiche or microfilm. I can't remember. They're always crossed in my mind. Basically, it's ancient technology for those youngsters of you who don't remember this. It's basically like film that you zoom in on using a very large microscope with some light behind it. Like it's hilarious. But he was in real estate. He was in large tracts of land for, I don't know, people hunt or something. I don't know, outdoorsy things. But being around him and also being around my grandmother, who was my best friend growing up, she ended up getting Alzheimer's, something along those. Started having like some really serious cognitive decline. And I didn't realize that was just because I was so close to it. Like, this is normal. This is life. This is what happens to bodies. Things do this, and you accommodate for it. You find your ways to move around it and accomplish what you need to accomplish. So it never seemed to me like people perceived it as a detriment. But that's in your own house, and then outside in the world, people, I think, struggle with having an understanding of disabilities, even building empathy for folks with disabilities. And to tie this all into like why I'm passionate about what I do is we're all just temporarily abled. We all gain disabilities as we get older, if we get sick, if we get injured. And then there's innumerable other ways to be born with disabilities. So to me, it's just logical why we would want to make everything as accessible as possible. And in a very selfish perspective, I would like to have access to goods and services and experiences as I age. So this is, it's a job, but it's fun for me because I actually get to live the words that all of the UX designers that you'll ever meet in your life will tell you that they are. They say they are human focused and empathy driven. And I don't think you can actually truly say that unless you're building an accessible experience that includes everyone.
Wow, fantastic. And to give people a little bit of a background on me and why I thought this was so important, because people listen to the podcast and they know me as probably the one-handed guy that is a host. But before this, I worked for a company called Discount Tire, and I worked 5 years in the stores like everyone did. And I just want, again, just to give people background on why I think it's so important, I re-educated myself and decided that I wanted to be a web designer. So this is like the late 90s, early 2000s, and I started like hand coding HTML, and I ended up running the e-business department. And Discount Tire is a multi-billion, like a $10 billion organization. But now that I'm on this side, and even when we're at Discount Tire, when I was at Discount Tire, all this accessibility stuff was in its early stages. And when I found out about you and Level, I want to make sure I get this, at Level 11 Technology and MaigenThomas.com, both of those websites, I just thought, wow, I need to look in the mirror, because what I'm doing here, now that I'm doing this as a podcast host, and I have a website that represents what I'm trying to do, I thought it was just so important for you to take a look at this website. And it's going to be interesting for me to learn from you. Just for the listeners to know, there's two things I want the listeners to know. Number one, we didn't have any I have no background on what she's going to tell me today, and I can't wait to find out. I really can't. And number two, I need to look at myself and make sure this is accessible for everyone, because I haven't done that, and it's not good of me. So I really appreciate you coming on and doing this. And I should say, let me go 2A. If you're listening to the podcast, I'm sure it's going to be a good one to listen to. But we're going to actually look at my website, and we're going to go, when I say we, you're going to go into it. So I urge everyone to go on YouTube and take a look at this, because I think it's extremely important. And another thing, first of all, I don't usually talk this much on my own podcast, especially when the guest is on. But what I'm going to do now is pretty much give you the control, because I want to take a look and learn. So that's what we're going to do now. Are we good to do that right now?
Yeah, super good. This is very organic. This is how I typically look at websites. This is how I start when I work with any client. The first thing I do is a website evaluation. I'm looking for accessibility features. I'm looking for accessibility barriers, and I'm looking for usability. So even if you don't have a disability, or you don't know yet that you have a disability, there's still some usability things where it's like, is this easy to understand? Can people find what they need? Because every website exists to kind of serve the business. It's meant to bring awareness to what you do. It's meant to encourage people to take action, to engage, to buy, to show up for an event, something like that. So I think it's important for any and every website. And I do have a process. It's the practical UX process. I actually wrote the book on it last year, and was it last year? No, it was this year. I wrote the book all last year. It published this year in May. My publisher would be very proud of me for mentioning that. But yeah, let's take a look. I'm going to share my screen. And even if you are just listening to this, I find or I hear that this is actually still really easy to listen to and follow along with. So first, what we have here is I'm sharing my screen, and we've got the We're Not Stumped website. I pulled it up as if I have never been here before, and I cleared my cache before, after we last talked about coming on the podcast, just so I could have this first-time experience as if I am someone who is brand new to the website. And the first things that I see here, we've got the navigation at the top, you've got your logo to the left, and then all of the different options for moving around the website at the top. This is typically where we find it. That's fantastic. And then you've got a picture of you, and your headline is real life stories, and then a little bit of detail about the We're Not Stumped podcast. So, and then below that, we can see a little hint of latest episodes. This is actually using a Gestalt principle, which is continuation. We know that there's only a little bits of these pictures we're seeing here, and it encourages our brain to go, wait, what's the rest of that picture? So it encourages us to scroll down. So you've really got some good features there. And then you've got a little pop-up in the right-hand bottom corner that says, oh, we're not stumped, with your little animated character. I love that so much. And then you can add your email address and don't miss an episode. So at a glance, the first thing that I can tell you that would improve the user experience is I would suggest making this picture that you have in the background of you, because, hey, you're the host of this. We do want to know who you are, and you've got words covering all you up. And I know you are a humble guy and just a down-to-earth kind of guy, but I promise you, we want to see you front and center. So I would put you over to the side, and I would even make that picture a little bit smaller. And then I would make sure that this white text, which by the way is great size text, and it has really good line height. So you're improving the cognitive experience for anyone who's coming here, regardless of, again, this doesn't have anything to do with disabilities. It's just making it easy for me to read and understand what you're trying to tell me about the podcast. So I would move that to the left-hand side here. And I would also consider changing real life story, second most important text here, and I would make We're Not Stumped podcast your biggest headline on this page, because this is the homepage of We're Not Stumped, and so people want that confirmation. Did I click on the right thing? Am I in the right place? Do I know where I am right now? And that just helps people to feel confident that they've made good decisions, that they clicked on what they intended to, and it kind of confirms, yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be. Another quick thing that I can point out about the accessibility here in your pop-up, this is great. You've got really good contrast on that closing X. We're not forcing anyone to engage with this pop-up if they don't want to, so we're not using like malicious tactics. But we've got email address here, and actually let me turn off you will autofill, and then everyone's gonna get to know where I live and my credit card numbers. This is probably gonna be helpful. Let's reload that. So that pop-up down there, oh no, is it gonna show up if I haven't been here? Let me remove
I think I have it so it doesn't.
It doesn't show up again? Yeah, it's okay. Hey, that's very kind of you, but now I'm like, wait a second. See, there we go.
Oh, it did, okay.
It did. So the one thing that I would say is if we start typing in there, now I don't know what happened. So what happens if there's a spider on my keyboard and I said, oh my God, I gotta smash it. Oh, I just startled my cat. I gotta smash that keyboard, and now I don't know what you expect me to put into this text box here in order to enter my email. So my suggestion for improving the accessibility for users with screen readers, because this email address label inside the input is not gonna show up for a screen reader user. So they are just gonna hear input. And maybe if we have some ARIA labeling on there, which is usually added manually, so if you don't know the accessible rich internet applications, the ARIA labels, then you wouldn't know to put it there. And that means a screen reader user or someone, and screen reader users are not completely blind. Some of them are, but a lot of them use it. People who might have cognitive or neurological situations, we're going to say impairments, because it's not always a disability and sometimes it's a temporary situation. So they might be using it to augment what they see. They might have limited vision, like macular degeneration, I understand is like having a finger directly in front of your eye. You can see around it, but you can't see directly in front of you. So giving them the ability to navigate a little bit more effectively by adding that screen reader would make this just a little bit easier. And then join the list, really good label for that button. And let me right click on that button, and we're gonna choose inspect. So if you've never spent time interacting with your browser like this, please don't feel intimidated. I was a flight attendant for 4 years, or excuse me, 6 years. Why did we're just gonna dial that back. I was a flight attendant for 6 years, and the most complicated thing that I programmed was the oven on board to cook your meals. And before that, I was an illegal nanny in Canada because I moved up because I met a boy online, and I don't know, that's all I could do besides dishwashing. So I was like, I guess I like kids more than I like dishes, so let's do this. So I give you this context to know that if this feels intimidating, I promise you it's not. If I could learn it after being a flight attendant and a nanny, you can also learn this too. And this is what I love about what I do, is like nothing I do is rocket science. I promise. Like we are not pushing the capabilities of technology. Okay, so when I right clicked and I selected inspect in that menu that drops down, what you see here on the right hand side of the screen are called the dev tools, the developer tools, and this is the Chrome browser. And up here at the top where the label says elements, these are the HTML elements that you're familiar with when you started hard coding those websites in the late 90s.
Back in the
And then
day.
down here are those CSS styles. Those are just the pretty styles that we add to things. Otherwise, the internet looks really naked, but it is inherently accessible. Even the naked, ugly websites, which is plain white background with black Times New Roman content, that is inherently more accessible than a lot of what we make today. So this is just one to give you some context. If someone's like, I see code, I feel lost, don't stress. Everything is okay. So what I wanted to look for was the input type and the submit. So an input is a type of button. It is not a semantic HTML button, but it's a kind of button inside of a form. And it's got a couple of classes and types and values, some attributes that are added to this HTML class. But what I was looking for is the label called join the list. So right now, all I see is value join the list. And I think that means that it is not going to be accessible to a screen reader. So even if a screen reader user figures out that they should put their email address here, they're not going to see or hear the button that shows up to allow them to join the list. So you could be missing out on a lot of different people who would like to subscribe, but can't.
Yes.
So that is a fun tip. Also, I just dismissed that box. That's okay. I've got an interesting little S here on the right-hand side of my screen, and this is the Silk Tide Chrome extension. And this is something anyone can download. It is free. My biggest caveat is to always be aware of the browser extensions that you're assigning to your browser, because some of them no longer are supported, and that leaves them vulnerable to code injection attacks. So like, this is just my warning of like, be careful what you're installing on your web browser. But I particularly like Silk Tide because it makes accessibility feel, well, a little more accessible to your average person who doesn't know things. So you can do just a broad accessibility checker and it will evaluate some programmatically findable things that are accessibility barriers on the website, but they don't find all of them, which is why I always recommend a manual evaluation. But here it can help you figure out like what order are the focus items, and like that's going to get into like keyboard navigation. I just wanted to show you that this tool is really helpful. One of my favorite things is that you know, Mike, that folks who have never experienced a disability sometimes have trouble empathizing because they don't have people in their lives who are disabled. They feel embarrassed to ask. They feel stupid for not knowing, and they kind of don't know how to behave. It's kind of like you don't, oh, sorry, I lost track of my analogy. Not important, but people don't know what's like appropriate, not appropriate, and when they feel stupid, and this is something I tell people about their websites all the time, if they feel stupid, if they don't understand the labels on your buttons, or they don't understand what they're going to do next, what happens when we feel stupid? We say, ooh, no thank you, I'm going to go over here, I'm going to find anything else to do but engage with that which makes me feel like I'm incapable or not smart enough to do something. So if we make people feel stupid on our websites, then they're not going to engage with us. And I try to bring that analogy into folks who do not have disabilities or may not have what they understand as disability. A lot of folks, when they picture someone disabled, they think Stephen Hawking. They think like profoundly disabled and like with the electric voice, and I'm moving the electric wheelchair with one finger. And that is simply not the case. There is an entire spectrum of disability. And I'm stealing a phrase from someone here, and I can't remember who it was, but there are 1.3 billion with a B people with disabilities globally. And I think that means that there are 1.3 billion ways to be disabled. And that means it's really difficult to put yourself in the shoes of another person or in the wheelchair of another person if you have never felt that experience and you don't have anyone that you can have intimate conversations with who will allow you to be in their shoes just a little bit more effectively. So I think we struggle with that as a human race. I think this is why we see people who are not adopting more accessible technology, because they just don't know anyone who it might impact. So I love this Silk Tide extension, because when I told you about my granddad with macular degeneration, this cataracts and myopia, if we boost that up to 50%, this is what the website looks like for him. And you can't do anything about that. Like, there's no sharpening or rendering that you can add to your website to make that, but you can be aware of maybe what you're putting on the website that makes that experience frustrating. So maybe it's larger text, maybe it's making sure that you're not putting text in images, so that folks who need to increase the size of their text using their technology, their computer, they can do so, and that you're not preventing them from accessing information.
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
How about like title tags and alt tags? Does that help in the images themselves? And how
title tags and alt tags. So the alt text is really important. The title text is kind of like either or. You can have the title or the alt text, but the alt text is going to be more favored and understood by screen readers because it's so specifically for them. And I love this question because this is also one of my favorite things. I personally love writing alt text for images because I get to hide Easter eggs in there for folks who are listening to the alt text that people who are just regular old sighted users don't get. So I get to add like fun asides, and I'm not trying to make every image a joke, but when one guy reminded me when he posted his profile picture, he's like, "This is me at the blah blah blah, and that fur in the corner is not real fur, it's fake fur. No animals died for this." And like, that's a sassy little joke that the person who's just perceiving the image is not going to get, but it's a little bit of a delighter. And that to me is even more inclusive, to make sure that people who are using screen readers know that not only did I account for you, like I really wanted to make sure you feel welcome. So adding good alt text is really good.
And it's good for search engine optimization as well.
It is so good for search engine optimization. In fact, I encourage you. So my best friend owns a jewelry shop. She is a GIA certified gemologist, and she buys vintage jewelry. She probably has the best job in the world. She had to create the job for herself, but she gets to play with pretty things all day. And I not only encourage her, I'm like, do you think that people who have vision related disabilities don't like jewelry? They love jewelry. Everyone loves jewelry. I mean, people who like jewelry love jewelry. People who prefer fly fishing are definitely not going to be your target market. But when we start adding alt tags to 10 images, and there may be just like 15-degree differences in how we're seeing this pair of earrings, but when we're adding additional context to these purple, luscious amethysts, blah, 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 gold, and we talk in the alt tag about they're in Portland, Oregon, they were handcrafted, we can add that additional context, and all of that shows up in the search engine results, including the text that's on the page. But your search engine or your alt text is going to show up in search engines and boost you in the rankings. So not only are you boosted for having an accessible website and having alt text on your images, you're also getting that extra SEO juice from all that additional context. So I love that you brought that up.
Oh, I can geek out on this all day. And I want to remind everyone who I'm talking to. I'm talking to Maigen Thomas. She can be found at MaigenThomas.com, as well as Level 11 Technology. And I want to say this too, because maybe a lot of the listeners, if they are a one-man, one-hand show like I am, sometimes it's hard to look in the mirror, but it needs to be done, because I don't get a chance this is so important to me, but I can only, as a one-handed guy, I can't juggle anything, but there's only certain things I can juggle. So for you to look at this is just, it's an honor, and it means a lot to me. And you're telling me things that you can't see the forest through the trees. I designed this, so I can't see some of this. And I just want people to understand that that's okay. And that's why you are there.
Yeah.
The service that you have is vitally important. And how much I appreciate you taking a look at this, it just means, again,
Oh
it means
my
a lot
gosh.
to me.
This is, honestly, this is my favorite. You found the job that you want to do when you would do it for free. I love being paid for my work, but I also genuinely love helping educate people and bring folks along. In fact, I'm actually going to apply to South by Southwest to do a workshop where I help people understand and build empathy for what it's like to navigate the internet the internet was not built for you. So I'm trying to find a way that makes it not pandering, but not make people feel like jerks for leaving folks out, but instead go, hey, this is not only possible, I'm excited about it, and I can take action on it. So the fact that you're excited is just like
Oh yeah, this is
bananas. I'm
great.
joyful.
And I want everyone to know this too. I'm on the WordPress platform, my own website. It's hosted by GoDaddy. But just so people understand, I'm on WordPress. I use, on some websites I use Yoast, on some I use Rank Math SEO. Not that that's part of this conversation, but just to give people, if they're really geeking out on this like I am, I want people to understand what I'm running on my website, which they can do really quick with the tools you already showed, but still.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned you're on WordPress because WordPress has its own community around accessibility. There is an entire, I actually just had it, it was a month or two ago, WordPress Accessibility Day. And it is a literal 24-hour conference where people from around the world are presenting for like 30 minutes at a time on how they bring accessibility into the WordPress environment. And it is honestly bigger than you'd think, and I'm sure that they would love to connect with you. And I promise you that there are people there who are super smarter than me, can do all of the super high-tech code stuff. Like, I keep it super basic because I think if we have somewhere to start, we can always improve. But if we feel like we're over our heads just from the job, then we don't feel the motivation to continue to take action and build momentum.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Oh, I'm trying to think. So I will also share this with you, and I'm happy to share this with your viewers, your readers, whoever. I have I would love to say proprietary. It's a spreadsheet, y'all. It is nothing sexy. This is how I evaluate websites. This is just part of it. I take a look at first impressions first, and I will also send this to you because it's got all my notes in here because I'm not a gatekeeper of information. I want people to understand exactly what I'm looking for and why I'm looking for what I'm looking for. So looking at website basics, do we have a privacy policy? We would look for that in the very bottom footer of the website. We would be looking for it down here with your copyright thing. And in fact, since you don't have one, I'm going to send you the one that I've created and had a lawyer take a look at. So again,
thank you.
Your mileage will vary. I want you to take a look with your own lawyer. But I've got several statements I can send over to you. So a privacy policy is how you collect people's data since you're taking in their email and that. If you're using Google Analytics, it's really important. And since you probably have a global audience because people with disabilities are not limited to being here in the US, that privacy policy is super essential if you have visitors from the European Union. So any EU country citizen is protected by the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulations. So that law and the CCPA, the California Consumer Protection Act, says that you cannot track any of their information without first getting their consent. So that privacy policy is where you say, hey, this is the information that I am keeping about you. And the data storage is where you're like, and we're only keeping it for 6 months. We're only using it for the email list and no one else but me has access to it. That's where that comes in. But the privacy policy is just like, hey, here's what's going on over here. And by using this website, you agree to that. And the terms and conditions is also something we look for. Now, here's the thing is you're actually exempt from having, I think, an accessibility statement and maybe a terms and conditions because you're a one-man show. And this is typically the legal requirement level is only met when you have like 30 or 10 or more employees and you make over $1 million in revenue a year. I am manifesting that for you, but you're probably not
someday,
there
right?
Just yeah, one day. But these are still, it's kind of like a proactive statement of like, we care about our users, which I know you do. So having the privacy policy and terms and conditions, people know what's happening with their data. Terms and conditions are like the rule book. When we all sit down and play Monopoly, someone has read the rules and understands that this should not actually end in a family feud. That's the kind of rule book of how we behave on the website. And then the accessibility statement can be so incredibly simple. It just says, hi, we are aware now of accessibility on the web, and we are making efforts to be aligned with the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And again, you're not required to meet those guidelines because it's a small website. So everybody listening needs to know that your website, no one is going to come after you and sue you for website accessibility, for your blog, for your personal portfolio, for your side hustle geek project, any of that. If you're, again, your previous employer, they would be held accountable for not having an accessibility statement. And all we're looking for there is just a statement of, hey, we're aware that there may be accessibility issues and we're making efforts to improve them. And you should give people a couple of ways to get in touch with you, like a phone number, a contact form, an email, an address if you like snail mail. Just giving people a chance to say, hi, I'm having trouble using this website. Here's what I specifically need. And that is as inclusive as it can possibly get.
I love it.
Yeah. And then the essential accessibility stuff, this is stuff that's aligned with the WebAIM 1 million study. So WebAIM is Web Accessibility in Mind. I have got to rename my company because it turns out level 11 is impossible to type. I'm figuring this out the hard way. But this WebAIM study, every year for the last 8 years, they take a look at the top 1 million web pages that are top in terms of traffic. So there's over 1.5 billion websites out there, including all of my old ones on like Angel Fire and GeoCities, if you remember those days. Yeah. Yes. So there's a ton of websites out there, but they look at the top 1 million in terms of traffic, and then they assess the first page of the website with the Wave tool. And the Wave tool will programmatically look for different issues that some are on this list right here and many others as well. And it'll give you a quantifiable number of errors. And then they compile this study. I think it takes like 3 months because it usually comes out at the end of March. And they let us know how many out of these million websites, how many of them have really standard, common, boring, pedantic issues like color contrast. 79.1% of the top 1 million websites have color contrast issues. That's 791,000 websites that all they need to do is darken up this text, lighten up this background, and voila, suddenly you have made your information more accessible to the 8.1 million people with vision-related disabilities. Like, I promise you, nothing we do is rocket science. It's all easy. So one of the things that I love to look for, document type and language of page, we can skip over. Those are just, I kind of warm people up into looking at the code with those because they're really easy to look for. But the skip link is one of my favorites. So if we do a refresh on this page and then I press the tab key, the very first thing that should pop up, and we're hoping that the WordPress theme that you used put this in here and didn't even tell you about it, and that would be amazing. Yes. Oh gosh, smacked my wrist. Skip to content. Did you know you had a skip to content button?
I did not, and I might as well give a plug to who it is. It's Avada from Theme Force. That's who I use.
Amazing.
Yeah,
so that is an invisible element on the page that sighted users will never see. It is only available to folks who are using the keyboard to navigate. And
I didn't know this.
Surprised. Yeah? I'm so delighted. You'd be surprised how many people use the keyboard to navigate because back in the olden days, there were no mice attached to the computer. The Apple II was the very first computer that attached a mouse to it. Yes, computer science history. But mostly we use the keyboard to navigate, and that also includes folks who have limited mobility, limb differences, folks who are temporarily impaired by holding a baby they can't put down because it's got colic, but I got to make an appointment with the doctor and I can't use my dominant hand, so I'm going to use the keyboard to navigate. So this will never show up until it receives focus. And just for funsies, you cannot, your elements on your website will never receive focus from anything other than the keyboard. The mouse does not give focus to any elements. This is a JavaScript powered tool. There's some fancy, well, it's sort of fancy code on the website that's like, hi, is there a mouse nearby? Oh, the mouse hovered on me. And then it takes action based on it. But this right here, this is the skip to content link, and we hope it's hooked up because typically it's the very first line of code. And what it's doing is it's allowing the user who's using a screen reader to not have to listen to all those navigation elements. Now you only have like 7 or 8 navigation elements. So when we press enter on that skip to content, notice how it dropped me down lower on the page. It said you don't have to listen to that navigation. And it's also helpful for folks who are, again, using just the navigation. They're not using a screen reader, but they are tabbing through using keyboard to interact with elements on the page. So that was an effective skip link. So for you, I would actually go back over to my spreadsheet and mark that as usually. So I never, I don't want to say that because I'm not a Sith. If you're a Star Wars fan, oh my God, I just did it. The Star Wars fan, I'm not a Sith, so I don't deal in absolutes. But since I did not personally check every single page of the website for a functioning skip link, we're going to make an assumption that it is in fact there. And only later, if we find that it's not there on some pages, would we come back and change this score. So this is how we end up with my process creating a quantifiable score for how accessible your website is. One of my favorite things to check is contrast, because this is, well, obviously it's on 791,000 of the top 1 million websites, so it's clearly a problem. So I'm going to right click here on the text that says real life stories here at the top. It's your primary call, well, not your call to action, it's a primary header. And we actually just discovered something that's usually on my extended website evaluation, but you've got it here because it's the largest text. So it's your headline. It's your performing of the page. This is what's important. It should be H1, and you should only have one H1 per page. So the H1s are like the Highlander. They can only be one, and that's only one per page. And you're skipping an H2 in here. So what that does is for folks who are using screen readers, but also this is how we process. As sighted users, we're reading the web, but we're not reading every word on here. Our brain's like, yeah, I know vaguely what this says. We're looking for big headlines and we're scanning to find the information that we want. So it's called the F format of reading. We're essentially just skipping along to the lines we think matter to us in order to narrow in on information. And people who use screen readers are also doing that. They're just doing it in a different way. Some screen readers, depending on how the user has them set up, because there's many different types, they will only see headings and links on the page. So it's really important that your headings are meaningful, not just this is a heading, but this heading is exactly what you're looking for because you're here for real life stories about amputees or people with disabilities. So this is really important to have. And then we also, so we've got that, we've skipped a couple of headings, which is fine. I also wanted to take a look. Oh yeah, I wanted to do color contrast. So since you've got text over an image, my little handy dandy tool in the browser extension, the browser is not going to work. So we're going to right click again, and there's that menu that drops down. We're going to click inspect, and up there where it says elements, there's two icons to the left of it. The first one to the immediate left, it looks like a little laptop with a phone in front of it, and that allows us to use the device emulator where we can see what our website looks on a mobile device. But big caveat for folks looking at accessibility, we do not use that for mobile accessibility testing because that is still just the browser pretending to be a smaller screen, not actually being the smaller screen. To the left of that is a square it's a dotted square with an arrow in the bottom right corner pointing into the center of the square. And that is our super magic element selector. And so when I do this and I hover over different things on the website, depending on how the code is nested, I can see details about it. It's really fun. So if I hover over a navigation element, I can see, okay, so we can see that the text is FFF, that is the whitest weight that is possible in the hex color code. We can also see that it has a certain size. It's 81.46 pixels wide by 18 pixels tall. If I was going to use that, let's see, actually, let me let go of that and hover here. Yeah, this is a nice target area. That whole anchor tag is actually 101 pixels wide and 100 pixels tall. So you're making it really easy for folks, even if they've got neurological or like something cerebral palsy where they can't control their muscles as accurately as they would like to, but they're still using a mouse, they can more easily select that item than if you had just made the text linked. So very, very good job on that. Here, this is where we can see that it's got accessibility features built into the browser. We love that. So we know that the text is white. we see that the background color is some kind of medium gray, and it's giving us a contrast ratio. It's telling us that it's 7.22, and we're gonna imagine that there's a colon 1 on the other side. It is 7.22 to 1, and your minimum contrast ratio should be 3 to 1. So you're almost more than double that. So that's fantastic. Really good work. Now, when I hover over this headline here, we can see that the color of the text is also white, but we can't see any accessibility features. And the reason for that is because there's an image behind the text, so we're never going to know what color is behind it. So technically, it's never going to be perceived as inaccessible or accessible by programmatic tools that find things automatically. So this is where manual evaluation is always necessary. And this, I'm going to close this and open my little silk tide, because this is why these tools are really helpful. So we're going to select the color for the text and check the color of the background and make sure that it's very visible. Like, you and I know it's visible because we can see it, but that doesn't mean it's visible for every type of user. So if I grab this little eyedropper for the foreground and I grab the color for real stories, it looks like it's pure white. And then I go grab the dropper for background, I can sample any of the colors behind it in this image, and we can see that it's actually pure, it's perfect. So we've got a black background and a white foreground. The foreground is the text. The text will always be in front of the background. And it's a 21:1 contrast ratio. That is literally the best that it can ever be. That is pure white on pure black, or pure black on pure white. And that is the best color contrast. So you can imagine that like 3:1 feels really low, but if the most you'll ever see is 21, like 7 is awesome. So we're doing great. This is fantastic.
But I like your recommendation to get the image away and have the text. So definitely a great recommendation on that too.
Totally. You're also doing really good in your images here. So I love the fact that you know that you've got a yellow background and you're like, white on yellow. You instinctively knew that wasn't going to look great or something wasn't going to pop, right? So you've added the drop shadow behind all of the letters and the outline, and that makes things, that is literally positioning the white of the text with the black of the outline, and that makes it inherently contrast, like it meets the color contrast requirements. So really good job. Even if you didn't do it on purpose, that's fantastic. I'm super
Those
happy.
are all done in Photoshop, Photoshop CS5, so it tells you how long ago, or how old my Photoshop is. So yeah.
It's been a minute, yeah.
Yes.
Would have been like CS20? I don't even know. I haven't been on Photoshop in so long.
Yeah, I don't know.
So it's really awesome that we see these next, the latest episodes, these images, like the cover image for each of your latest episodes. And this one is, these would be considered complex images because there's images of you, or there's images of the folks that you're interviewing. You've got the name of the podcast at the top, you've got, or at the bottom, you've got the date on there, unless that date is separate. It looks like, just kidding, the date is separate. And then you've got the title of the podcast episode. But again, for folks who cannot see effectively or cannot see, when we looked at that impaired vision, that would have been really, really blurry. So we would be looking for alt text on this, and we'd be looking for slightly more complex alt text than just this image of you right here behind your phone, which is a good one. I'm actually going to inspect this one because that's an informative image. That's showing me that it's you, you're the host of the show, you're a real person, and I'm excited about talking with you. So you've got alt text, Mike Bolland, is it Bolland?
Bolland, but that's fine.
Bolland, Mike Bolland, podcast host. I think that's great. Okay. You could enhance it if you wanted to by describing a little bit about the image, black and white, kind of gritty gray with it looks very film noir kind of style, and a cool microphone in front of you. Mike Bolland sits behind a microphone in his office and hosts this show. But what you've got here is good enough. It's perfect. Right here, I'm going to right click on the latest episode for Attitude is the Key to Everything. Attitude is the key. All right, let's right click. So what we would look for, the alt text here says attitude after amputation. And we probably would love to see just a little bit more for folks who may not have experienced that photo before. So we'd say attitude is the key to everything in quotes. the title or this podcast episode is about having a good attitude or having a positive attitude after amputation. This is episode number whatever of the We're Not Stumped podcast, and it came out on July 10th, 2025. You could add just a little bit more context so that someone who can't see the image still understands all of the same information that someone who can see the image. So for alt text, it's not about describing every pixel. It's about describing the meaning. So if you have to shout it to your grandmother in the other room, how would you describe it? How would you get her to kind of visualize that? Yeah. And that's kind of what we're trying to do and give equitable access to the information.
That's great. That's an excellent tip there. Thank you.
Nice. Search for episode topic. This is good. This get in touch. This is a usability / gamification / UX design thing, not an accessibility thing. But I would make that a little bit more pow. Like you've got this yellow up here that's your brand color. I feel like that would pop right here, especially if you want people to get in touch. This is your only call to action on the page. You might include a call to action up here in this real life stories at the bottom, like your donation helps support expanding our reach. So donate today would be a really amazing call to action to have up here if that's what you're seeking. But it feels like you're a little bit more subtle about this. You can support the show if you want to, but also you've got support the show for 5 to 15. And I have no idea how to do that. There's no button that says, click this, do that now.
Yep, perfect.
Selected options. What does that mean? Oh, it's loading a page. Yeah. So these are really, really good. Okay, so if I click through, I see that it's a product option and I can actually purchase something. So that's really helpful. That would be attached to that call to action button at the top. And then I also just realized, so you have all of your podcast episodes on YouTube. Do you transcribe your video episodes?
I don't. I do not. Is there? Do you know a tool that can help me do that?
Yes, I do. So you don't do super long episodes. I would consider looking at otter.ai.
Okay.
And there are other, I think, free transcription ones. But this is something that is, it's not on this spreadsheet right here. But essentially, if you've got video, if you've got audio that's embedded on your website, adding a little read the transcript button below this. And ideally, the link text would be even more meaningful. So read the transcript of how to turn your difference into your biggest strength. And that would just take someone to a plainly formatted Word document, something like that you host in Google Drive that anyone can read. And that makes sure that everyone has the same amount of access. And then, of course, we're using Zoom. So you can also ask Zoom to transcribe, and it'll print that transcription out for you. Actually, why am I sending you to Otter AI? Just do it in Zoom.
Yeah,
so then
I
you can download that, and you can add that as an SRT file to your YouTube. You do that?
I do not. I need to do that. And let me ask you this too. For SEO purposes, would it be okay to have a separate page with all that content on it instead of going to like a Google Drive? What's your thought on that?
I love that idea, as long as it is easy to access and easy to process by people's technology. So yeah, an entire web page that has the video on it and all the transcript of it, that would be perfect, and that would be beautiful for SEO, because all of that will get we're also, by the way, and this is again nothing to do with accessibility, but we're in the age where we have to optimize for AI now, not just for SEO. So people are using, especially I just read, people over the age of 40 are using ChatGPT as their search engine. So if we're optimizing for being found by that search engine, then putting your transcript on that page would be ideal for meeting both of those needs. And it would answer questions as people ask about it.
Thank you. This is so interesting.
This is so fun. I know I don't know how long you want to continue to dive on this, but I feel like you've got some really good things that you can make changes to. Let me right click on this text right here. I think this might be a little low contrast. Yep. This is small text. All you need to do is boost that gray of the text a little bit darker. It's 4.36. Small text needs to meet 4.5. That's it. So slightly darker on that 595959. Maybe boost that to, I'm gonna go with 6, 7, something like that. Let's see this. This one's good, 6.74. So if you meet that same color over here in these drop downs, perfect. But these are links. I think, yeah, they are links.
Yeah.
So in order to make sure they're very distinguishable as links, I would put an underline under there, a text decoration.
Great point.
And
Yes.
maybe bold it a little bit so that people know that it's distinct from the body text over here.
Great call out there.
I get so much excitement
not being
out of
able
all
to see
this.
you can't see the forest through the trees. And it's great to have another set of eyes on this. This is fantastic. I can't thank you enough. I can keep going. I don't want to take your time. This is
No worries.
I'll geek out on this all day.
Totally. I will throw out just a shameless plug here. I somehow the URL freewebsiteevaluation.com is available. It's not available anymore. It's mine now. So if you want me to take a look at your website, if you are, and I don't care if it's your personal blog or like your one product website, I'm happy to help. Essentially, you would come put your email, your website, and your name, and then I will send you a 5-minute video of a loom that just says, hey, here's like 3 things that you could fix to make this a little bit more accessible. And I do that for free. It's fun for me. Again, I don't want to gatekeep accessibility. I think it's important. So if people are even curious about what on their website may or may not be accessible, send me, go to freewebsiteevaluation.com.
freewebsiteevaluation.com. And that was available. That's
I know,
what a
right?
great
I was
URL.
like, what? Okay, I'll take it for 1106 on pork bun. Thank you.
Is that who you go through?
I do. I love pork bun.
Okay.
Big shout out. They're delightful. I worked in the same building with them when they were still like 5 or 7 employees.
Oh, wow.
And when they made a sale, one of their computers went whoopee or like yay. And it was annoying after a while because they started getting more and more sales. And now they're like one of the top 3 name registrars, which just brings me joy. So like I knew them when they were small.
Wow, that's so interesting. That's really neat. And where else you can find Maigen on level11technology.com and certainly MaigenThomas.com. So 3 different ways to do that. And on LinkedIn, I know you have a LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, I'm very much on LinkedIn. I am sometimes on Facebook. But I'm also on YouTube. I love doing these live video evaluations. I just love talking about it. I went live for 20 minutes yesterday talking about accessibility stuff.
It's so
I nerd
interesting.
out on this. It's not fun for everybody, but like when you get excited about it, and it's hard not to be excited when you discover something new, especially when it impacts someone you love. So the fact that I get to talk about this and it's such a positive experience for you to learn something, for people who are listening to you to learn something, like this is a dream come true. I'm super happy.
Well, not only that, for a business, this is dollars and cents right here.
Yeah, I mean, this is potentially, right now, you're not going to expect, if you're a larger company or you're working for a larger company and you're like, ugh, our website's not that accessible. I need you to know that right now, this current DOJ is not coming for you. But one of the things that I do help people see is that we have an entire cohort of baby boomers, the baby boomer generation that was born after World War II. And I'm not certain, but I'm fairly sure that they invented the concept of litigiousness in this country, like suing to get what you need.
Yeah.
They are not afraid to sue to get their needs met. So having your website be more accessible, I'm not concerned about the DOJ. They're going for way bigger fish, like the accessibility overlays that are actually preventing people's technology and screen readers from connecting with websites. They're getting fined for millions of dollars, but small businesses are just going to lose credibility with their target market. They're going to lose out on potentially 15% of revenue that they could make.
Exactly.
The folks that have, I think there's 1.3 billion people with disabilities in the world globally. 1 in 4 Americans has a disability. 11,000 people a day are turning 65. And I know you don't tip over at 65. Suddenly you're like, everything falls apart. I mean, some people might need to pull it together. But like, no, we've got a lot of folks who are graduating into disabilities. There are 730 million aging adults. And by 2035, I think it is, they will outnumber the 1 to 18 crowd by like 2 to 1. So these folks still need goods and services, and
Yes.
you are missing out on them. Plus the I think it's $13 trillion in spending power. It's not just those aging adults, it's not just the people with disabilities, but all the people who love them and support them, their friends and family, they have spending power too. And essentially that whole chunk of humans, and I saw this on a Forrester report, a webinar not too long ago, it's about 2/3 of the world's population, and they will choose to spend their money with companies that make them feel included. So if you want some of that, we live in a capitalist world right now. So if you want some of that, you should probably make your websites and your digital properties and your products accessible.
Very well said. And thank you so much for looking at my site.
Of course.
No, it means a lot to me. And again, if people are out there thinking, hey, I got a website for any size business, and I'm like, well, I don't want to, I'll be embarrassed if they take a look at it. Don't be. Because I needed this. I can't see the forest through the trees. I'm juggling a lot of things. I was making jokes earlier, but seriously, I do my own editing and my own recording. Everything I do myself. Everything. So some of that stuff is just going to fall through the cracks. So having your set of eyes on this, and what was that website again? I want to make sure that
freewebsiteevaluation.com.
Go to that and reach out to Maigen and have her take a look, because obviously, you just heard, everyone that's listening to this podcast just heard what I just learned, and I can't wait to incorporate this into my site.
I'm so excited to see it. It brings me so much joy. I want you to know that if there's anything that you're like, oh, I don't know how to do this, let me know, because I will be happy to help you figure it out. Every single website's different. Everyone's got a different little setup. Yeah. I am in the first year of building my consultancy business. Like my aspirations of being the apprenticeship agency, like we are growing. I think I just took on my 5th client, and every single website's different, and we're just making incremental changes, and that is enough. Momentum forward is enough. It is still progress. So if there's anything that I can do to help anyone feel more excited about their website, amazing. And if you're just like, I don't want to deal with any of this, call me, because I can do that for you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the We're Not Stumped podcast.
Of course,
and everything you taught me, and certainly everything you taught probably the people that are listening. So thank you so much.
I hope it was helpful. I really, really do.